Hello, and welcome to Classic Motorsport Podcast. I'm Gareth Thomas, and today we're looking at the 2001 Daytona 500, a race that Michael Waltrip won his first NASCAR race, and a race that killed a legend in Dale Earnhardt Sr. So, we're going to start all the way back to the off-season. NASCAR requires restrictor plate tracks held for races at the Daytona National Speedway for the Daytona 500, as well as NASCAR races at Talladega. In 2000, NASCAR instituted additional swings, restrictions to the swings and shocks used on the cars. Dale Earnhardt Sr. complained to the media, stating, "Took NASCAR wins to get racing and made it some of the sorest racing. They took it out of the hands of the drivers and crews, can't just and make our cars drive they want. They just killed the racing at Daytona. This is a joke to have to race like this." In response to criticism such as Earnhardt's and others, NASCAR developed a new aerodynamic package for the cars competing at Daytona and Talladega for the races later in 2000. In the initial package at Talladega, Earnhardt passed 17 cars within 4 laps to win the full race at Talladega, which proved to be his 76th and final win. 2001 Daytona 500, which we're doing at Daytona, was the first time they tried it with this package. Keep cars bunched up together and allow for more frequent passing at high speed. Weeks before the Daytona 500, their fan and media preview events, Earnhardt was one of the few that chose to skip it. Fellow driver Jimmy Spencer criticised Earnhardt. And then in 2 weeks before the 500, Earnhardt and his son Dale Earnhardt Jr., who was at the time in the Cup Series with Dale Sr., competed in the Works 24 Endurance race driving a Corvette, which kicked off Speed Weeks. Them two teamed up with Andy Pilgrim and Kay Collins, finished 4th overall, 2nd in class. A week after that was the Budweiser Shootout, and it would be known for firsts. The first race on Fox, and it was a race won by Tony Stewart ahead of Earnhardt and Wesley Wallace in 3rd, and then qualifying happened on the Sunday, which Bill Eyre got pole ahead of Jerry Nadeau, but Nadeau was disqualified from qualifying for unimproved shock absorbers and spring shackles. Stacey Compton, who qualified 3rd, moved up to 2nd. Out of 52 cars trying to qualify for 43 places. And then the Twin 125s, which was another first time they'd ever shown live. Previous races prior to that were tape delayed, which were pretty much something that begins with a word that we can't say. But in race 1 of the Twin 125s, Stonemaier won ahead of Jerry Nadeau and Earnhardt Sr. in 3rd, and in race 2, Mike Skinner won from Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jeff Burton in 3rd. And then, basically, if I can get my piece of paper, because I've written it down, the night before the 500, Earnhardt took former NFL player and Fox NFL pundit Terry Bradshaw, a very colourful character, around Daytona International Speedway on Saturday night. It's obvious on YouTube, so you could see that. And in the pre-race, Chris Myers, who was at the time the host of Fox's NASCAR coverage asked Bradshaw about it. Bradshaw said, "Riding in the car was not fun because it had a computer on it. If no computer, Earnhardt could go faster, and that was in the Pontiac pace car." Earnhardt said in a pre-race, "We'll see something that you've never seen on Fox," which refers to this race. And prior to the race, Michael Waltrip spoke with Earnhardt because Waltrip was on a winless streak of 463 starts to win. In a 2011 interview, Waltrip said, "Plan was simple. Me, you and Dale Jr. are going to work together and win this race." And that was Earnhardt saying that. Thought sounds great, but sounds realistic because there's 40 other cars that are going to mess the whole plan up. And that was Waltrip's own words. So, but Bill Elliott, who was on the pole, led to the green flag, only led one lap in his way of an ham-ended Dodge before Stan Marlin, in a Ganassi-ended Dodge, passed him for the lead. And then suddenly, lap 29, Rusty Wallace goes down to the pits after his white front tyre had gone flat. NASCAR determined Wallace succeeded pit road speed limit on the way and issued a 15-second penalty. Went the lap down, attempted to make it up by skipping the first scheduled pit stops. First caution came out on lap 48 when Jeff Purvis bounced off the wall between turns 3 and 4. The race we started stayed under a long green flag, one that lasted 105 laps. And then Earnhardt Senior was racing Kurt Busch and flipped the bird at him at 185 miles an hour. And Mike Joy, who was commentating for Fox, saying, "Kurt, you're number one." Second caution came out on lap 157 when Busch tried to get past Joe Nemechek, hit the front stretch wall, slide across the track, right through the infield and into pit road. On lap 167, Steve Park, driving for Dale Earnhardt's team, took the lead only to be passed by Waltrip, who was also driving for Earnhardt Sr., as was Dale Jr. A huge crash on lap 173 eliminated 18 cars in spectacular fashion. It began when Robbie Gordon, driving for Morgan McClure, turned Warburton's Welsh racing car side in the outside lane. Burton then hit Tony Stewart, who bounced across the middle of the racetrack, collecting most of the field behind him. Stewart took the worst side of any driver in the crash. The car turned against the wall after being hit by Burton, caught a pocket there and got airborne over Gordon and flipped over twice and then landed on top of Jason Leffler before going to a stop on the infield. Stewart's teammate Bobby Labonte had his head broke off and got attached to Stewart's car, causing his engine to catch fire. Stewart's vehicle described something similar to which the Petties were over in the 1988 Daytona 500. Mark Martin, in another Welsh racing car, guided first with the outside wall and then got hit by at least two other cars, destroying the rear end of his Welsh racing Ford. Martin managed to limp back to the pits and abandoned it. Also involved in the wreck were Jeff Gordon, who would win the championship in 2001, Terry Labonte, and Andy Houston, Bradshaw Jones, Dale Jarrett, who won the race in 2000, Jeff Burton, Elliott Sadler, Kenny Wallace, John Andretti, and Jerry Nadeau. Few drivers including Earnhardt, who was driving for Richard Childress, Bill Elliott driving for Evernham, Ron Hornaday Jr. driving for AJ Foyt, and Ken Schrader driving in another Daytona 500 for its crash. Race was red flagged for extensive clean-up. Dale Jr. said on team radio, "We were so lucky to avoid the crash." Earnhardt Sr. said on the radio, "Richard, if they don't do something on these cars, it's going to end up killing somebody." referring to his team boss, Richard Childress. During this caution, Earnhardt spoke with Andy Pilgrim, who was his co-driver at the 24 Hour, and this is what they said. Earnhardt said, "So, any advice for me here coming up?" Pilgrim responded, "No man, I haven't got any advice, you just keep what you're doing." Earnhardt said, "Okay, just wondering." Pilgrim said, "Cheers, talk to you later." Pilgrim said that there was no further crew conversation with Earnhardt, but he did share on teammates Waltrip and Dale Jr. because they were driving for a team owned by Earnhardt, but Earnhardt was driving for Richard Childress. On lap 180 with Dale Jr. leading, Marlin led the next 3 laps before Michael Waltrip took over again. The 2 laps remaining, Michael's brother Darryl Waltrip, who was commentating for Fox, commented that Sterling Marlin had beaten the front end of that old Dodge just trying to get around Dale, referring to Earnhardt. As the white flag waved, Earnhardt and his son Dale Jr. were right behind Waltrip. Dale Jr. was second, in front of his father, but behind Waltrip. Heading into turn 3, Earnhardt was holding third place when in the middle of the part, Marlin, who was behind him on his left, on the inside. Kenny Schrader was on the other side. Rusty Wallace was behind Earnhardt. As they went into turn 4, Marlin's car made contact on the left rear of Earnhardt's car, causing the black number 3 of Earnhardt to slide off the track steep banking of 33 degrees onto the apron. Trying to correct its speed, Earnhardt sharply turned up the track to avoid the outside retaining wall, although it briefly looked he was going to avoid hitting the retaining wall. Earnhardt went right into Kenny Schrader's path and Schrader ran into him behind the passenger door, causing Earnhardt's car to snap rapidly as it changed angle towards the wall. As Schrader came to contact, Earnhardt Sr. crashed into the wall nose first at 155 to 160 miles an hour. Both cars slid down the steep banking and into the infield grass. While the 2 cars went in progress, drivers allowed to race to the finish under green flag conditions. Because at the time you could race back to the yellow, but now you're not allowed in current NASCAR races. While that was going on, Waltrip, after 462 races without a win, claimed his first Cup victory with teammate Dale Jr. behind. Yellow and checkered flags came out simultaneously, with Rusty Ross third, Wiki Red fourth, A third, fifth. Okay, so with Mike Wallace sixth, Marlin seventh, Bobby Hamilton eighth, Jeremy Mayfield ninth, Stacey Compton 10th and Joe Nemechek 11th. Earnhardt and Schrader were credited 12th and 13th because they did not finish the race. Yeah. Whilst the race finished, Schrader got out of his car. Luckily though, checked and later released, but Schrader went to check on Earnhardt. Earnhardt's window was still open. Schrader pulled it down himself and frantically signalled for paramedics who were just arriving at the crash site. They said, in relating on the events, Schrader described it, "We've got problems. Look, I'm not a doctor, I'm telling you, it does not look good." And this was 10 years after the accident that he said it. Here's the deal. When I went up the car, I knew he was dead, yeah, but I didn't want to be the one who said Dale is dead. That was Schrader's words. After the race finished, Dale Jr. went straight down to the medical centre to check on what was going on, as did the Richard Childress racing team and members of DEI. Waltrip went straight to victory lane, celebrated for 30 minutes, then Schrader came in and told them what had happened. Ty Norris, who was who was the main person at the EI, was told by the president of the Speedway that they were taking Dale to the hospital. Richard Childress couldn't get hold of Earnhardt, so he went to Mike Skinner's radio headset and asked Skinner to check, because Skinner was on the backstretch as he was a teammate of Earnhardt's. Skinner later radioed to Childress that you need to go to the medical centre. As per NASCAR rules, any driver involved in a crash and unable to drive back to the pits must be extracted from the car, must report to the infield hospital. In severe cases, they'd be sent to emergency trauma room at the hospital near the circuit. Earnhardt Sr. was extracted from his car by Daytona safety team and taken by ambulance to Halifax Medical Centre, which was 2 miles from the speedway. Attempts to revive Earnhardt sadly failed, and his death at the age of 49 was officially pronounced at 5:16 p.m. Eastern, and he was only 49. The official cause of Earnhardt's death was given by the Velocity County Medical Examiner as blunt force trauma to the head, but he also sustained a fatal blazer skull fracture on impact. It was the 4th death by a blazer skull fracture in NASCAR during an 8-month span. Started off in May 2000 with Adam Petty at the age of 19 in New Hampshire during a Busch Series event. In July 2000, Kenny Irwin Jr. in a Cup Series practice was killed, also by a blazer skull fracture, and then by October 2000, Tony Roper in a Truck Series event in Texas was killed. All 4 drivers had blazer skull fractures. Less than 2 hours after the accident, NASCAR President Mike Elton announced Earnhardt's death. A later investigation revealed Earnhardt's car struck the concrete retaining wall at a head-in angle. Angle of the vehicle measured from the wall face to the centre line at point of impact of between 55 to 59 degrees, combined trajectory angle of 13.6 degrees, which is the path of approaching the wall. And with an estimated speed of 157 and 161 miles an hour. Earnhardt experienced a crash impulse of approximately 80 milliseconds in duration. The result of the wall impact and the impact from Ken Schrader's car combined to yield a change of velocity of 40 to 44 miles an hour. The force exerted was equivalent to a vertical drop of height of 61.8 feet. Later sled testing of its central field yielded G-forces from minus 68 to 48 Gs. Variation depending on method of measurement. Earnhardt's death triggered widespread media attention. One paper called the February 18th Black Sunday devastated fans congregated the headquarters of Richard Childress Racing, who Earnhardt was most famous driving for them for 17 years, and at his own team, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. On the night of the crash and at Daytona International Speedway, Earnhardt was featured in the following week's Times magazine, and video from the race was played on nearly every major television channel in the US. On February 22nd, 4 days after the accident, Earnhardt's public funeral service was held at the Calvary Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. His death led to investigations by the Florida State Police and by NASCAR's sanctioned investigation. Previous investigations were made private, but this investigation, in a reversal of decisions, nearly every detail of the investigation was made public. Days after the crash, Sterling Marlin received hate mail and death threats from Earnhardt fans that blamed him for his death. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Dale Sr.'s son, basically defended Marlin and asked everyone who loved his father to stop assigning blame for Dale Sr.'s death. On February 20th, 2 days after the accident, Marlin said this: "I definitely didn't do anything intentionally, just racing our guts out there for the last lap of the Daytona 500. Everyone was going for it. Dale's car got caught in the middle, three wide with Ken Schrader. Marlin also said, I was as low as I could go. Whether Westy was gotten loose and down into me, I don't know. You have to talk to Westy was. I watched the tape one time, and that is all I want to see it." Oh. In the weeks following the accident, Bill Simpson, founder of Simpson's Performance Projects, made the seatbelts Earnhardt wore during the race, also reported death threats from angry fans, mostly Earnhardt fans. When asked about this, Dale Waltrip, a former NASCAR driver and back then a commentator for Fox, stated that NASCAR is an emotional sport and all the fans love their drivers, so something like this happens to catch in today's races makes you want to blame someone, and someone has to be involved. Unfortunately, blame is placed in the wrong place here. Current NASCAR driver Brad Keselowski compared Earnhardt's death to that of Ayrton Senna, the three-time Formula One champion. Keselowski was only 10 when Senna was killed in Imola in 1994 for the San Marino Grand Prix. I did this in a previous episode and I explained about that. I'll leave the same link below so you guys can see it. Senna's death was the same day as the Winston Slack 500, which took place on Talladega, a race that Earnhardt won, and paid tribute to Senna in Victory Lane. Replacing Earnhardt was difficult for team owner Richard Childress. He made a public pledge that a black car with a GM sponsorship would no longer use the number 3, honouring the car scheme and sponsor that Earnhardt had driven since '88. 2000 season was second in owners points and the winner circle bonus program. Childress requested and NASCAR approved the team to be renumbered to 29, although first numbers available without 3 were 13 and 23, open at the time. It retained the same sponsorship, although the car was inverted colour scheme. It was a white body with black numerals and a black stripe on the bottom. The team kept the bonuses in 2000 and the Daytona 500. For the race at Atlanta, a new paint scheme was introduced at Atlanta with red stripes and a paint screen sponsored Chevrolet in the Busch series. Although they would use the number 3 in Busch and trucks, it wasn't until 2014 the number 3 would be used in Cup. But in 2001, Childress' second year Busch Series driver, Kevin Harvick, was tapped to replace Earnhardt, beginning at the Dooley 400, the first race after Earnhardt's death, in North Carolina Speedway in Wockingham, North Carolina. Hats bearing the number 3 logo was distributed to everyone at the track in Earnhardt's memory. Although the Childress team wore black uniforms out of respect, but as Harvick's performance improved, returned with the team scoring top 10 finish at Las Vegas and then winning at Atlanta against Jeff Gordon in a similar finish to what Dale Earnhardt Sr. had with Bobby Labonte in 2000. And then basically Jeff Gordon, who took pole at Wockingham, gave a miss and man's formation during the pace laps as it was custom used for the morning. Steve Park, driving for Dale Earnhardt's team, won the race, felt emotional in Victory Lane, and later dedicated to him. And basically when Harvick won at Atlanta, burning out French threats with 3 fingers held aloft. And Earnhardt's longtime gasman, Danny Chocolate Myers, who was at the time working with Harvick as a gasman, crying after the victory. When they came back to Daytona for the Pepsi 400, Dale Jr. won, and it was the first race on NBC since the 80s. Led to an emotional celebration with Michael Waltrip, who finished second. Earnhardt Jr. would win 2 more races, the full race at Dover, which was the first race after 9/11, and a victory at Talladega for an 8th place finish. Although 9th place finish for Harvick and 2 wins and top 10 finishes in the points, Harvick captured Rookie of the Year. Every race throughout 2001, lap 3 was silent for broadcasts. However, when September 11th happened, they made lap 3 a silent lap to remember people that they knew. That was until 2002 race at Rockingham, but then obviously silent lap 3 for Earnhardt was returned in the Daytona 500 in 2011 and 2021. Although Earnhardt Sr. was credited 57th in the points in 2001 and competing only at Daytona before his death, he also won Most Popular Driver award at the end of the year ceremonies. Bill Elliott, who won in 2000, bowed out and encouraged his supporters to vote for Earnhardt instead. 5 days after Earnhardt's death, NASCAR officials announced that the left lap belt on Earnhardt's seat belt harness had broken. Dr. Steve Bohannon, NASCAR's medical expert, said that the faulty belt had allowed Earnhardt's chin to strike the steering wheel, causing the fatal basal skull fracture. This led to speculation that Earnhardt would have survived if his seatbelt had not broken. The first paramedics responded to the crash scene, maintained that the seatbelts had been loose, but the lap belt was not broken or cut when the belts were unbuckled to cut Earnhardt from the car. NASCAR's investigation concluded that each of the EMTs who attended to Earnhardt after the crash reported that the buckle position of Earnhardt's harness was off-centre by 4 to 8 inches, that's 10 to 20 centimetres, which would have been impossible had the lap belt not broken. A subsequent medical report revealed that the belt failure did not play a significant role in Dale Earnhardt's death. At the time of the accident, Simpson Performance Products, the company that manufactures seatbelts used in every NASCAR competition machine, Bill Simpson, the company found and maintained the belt failed because it had been installed in an unapproved fashion in order to increase Earnhardt's comfort, an allegation that had been supported by some who were familiar with the situation. Ed Hinton, at the time a sports writer for Orlando Senator, attempted to acquire Earnhardt's autopsy records and photo for study, as autopsy records were normally public documents in Florida. Earnhardt's Sr.'s wife, Teresa, petitioned the judge to seal the records. It was mutually agreed to appoint Dr. Barry Myers, an expert on crushing injuries at Duke University, to independently study Earnhardt's death. Myers' publisher's report rejected NASCAR's explanation, finding that Earnhardt's death was a result of inadequate restraining head and neck snapping forwards independently of the broken belt, rendering the question of improper installation moot. Philip Verner, a neurosurgeon at the University of Miami, who had previously analysed for the crash for the Senator before the autopsy records were made available, said he had reached the same conclusion but wanted to examine the autopsy photos to be certain. Steve Olry, a doctor that had been a medical director for CART for 22 years, and Wayne State University crash expert John Melvin also agreed with Myers' report. Bill Simpson said the report was the best news I heard in 7 weeks. I've been living in daily hell. On the same day as the Myers report was made public, NASCAR announced its own investigation, having remained silent for 6 weeks since Dale Sr.'s death. The official report, which cost over $1 million, was published in August, concluding that Earnhardt's death was the result of a combination of factors. The last second collision was showed discarded speed and angle of impact, separation of the seatbelt being contributing factors. It was also did not determine whether a harness device would have saved Earnhardt's life, and that an S-style black box would have been mandated for all vehicles in order to understand the forces that worked out in a crash such as Earnhardt's. In July 2001, Bill Simpson left Simpson Left Products because the stress was too much. The company attorneys asked NASCAR to assess the firing regards to the roping belt in Earnhardt's car. They wanted belts high quality, that there was no design or manufacturing defects. The belts met NASCAR rulebook requirements. The belts as installed did not conform to manufacturing installment requirements. The separation of the left lap belt that was not as a result of design or manufacturing defect but caused by improper installation. The belt separation was not the cause of Earnhardt's death. NASCAR did not respond. A year after leaving his own company under controversy, Simpson returned to the motorsport safety industry. After his 1-year non-compete clause expired, starting Impact Racing Products. There was safety improvements to the sport of stock car racing. Many teams migrated to traditional 5 to 6 point safety harnesses. NASCAR did not make any immediate changes regarding use of hands devices. Mike Helton, who was the president of NASCAR, said we're not going to react to it for the sake of reacting. NASCAR did wish to encourage the use. Most drivers voluntarily wore the device. 2 days before the report, 41 out of 43 drivers were wearing them at the Pepsi 400 by Major at Michigan. On October 4th, 2001, an ARCA race was being held in conjunction with the full NASCAR race weekend at Charlotte. Blaze Alexander was killed in a tube-car accident while batting for the lead in the final lap of the race. The other driver Alexander was batting for the lead with was Kerry Earnhardt, Dale Sr.'s eldest son. Earnhardt's car flipped on its roof after Blaze Alexander went into the wall, but he was in the lead when the race was halted with 4 to go. Due to carnage, the race was never restarted, so Earnhardt, who was not injured, was declared the winner. NASCAR mandated the use of hands device on October 17th. The Hutchins device was also used but phased out in 2005, only the hands device. In addition to that, NASCAR began requiring the use of safer barriers at racetracks when they compete. Soft rules feature foam and move slightly upon impact, dissipating energy and resulting in fewer forces being exerted on the driver during the impact. After Earnhardt's death, NASCAR developing the car Tomorrow, which was used in Cup until the Gen 6 car came out in 2013. The car Tomorrow was first used in 2007. The COT was the result of research conducted in the aftermath of Earnhardt's death, and all the COT remains in the Gen 6 car. There was controversy about Earnhardt's autopsy photos because the day after that, after Earnhardt's death, the Volusia County Medical Examiner performed an autopsy for Earnhardt. The unusual act of notifying NASCAR and Earnhardt's widow Theresa Earnhardt was made prior to releasing the records sought by members of the public and media. 3 days after the autopsy, Theresa Earnhardt, Dale Sr.'s widow, filed a legal brief in the 7th Judicial Court and for Volusia County, Florida. Once the complaint was filed, the medical examiner office was barred from releasing the public records, including autopsy photos pertaining to Earnhardt, until forming hearing on the merits of Theresa Earnhardt's case could be heard. February 28th, March 13th, March 16th happened. Orlando Santo, Michael Waltrip, founder of City.com and Campus Communication, published the newspapers for the University of Florida, the independent Florida Aviation Formations to intervene into the Earnhardt versus Volusia case in order to uphold the rights to inspect and copy public records, to include photographs and videotapes. But that's what happened between them. But from June 12th to 13th, a trial was conducted, but Judge Joseph Well ruled against Ribe and CCI public records requests, and basically it was requested under Florida and federal laws. So, however, the US Supreme Court declined to hear Ribe's and CCI appeals. Thus, the Florida legislation, March 29, 2001, law prevents Earnhardt's public record autopsy photographs would remain in effect, so effectively banned anyone from seeing that. Which meant the legislation known as the Earnhardt Family Protection Act was sponsored by Daytona Beach Senator Jim King of Jacksonville and changed the laws for Florida. Yeah. The Earnhardt law deems Florida's medical examination, autopsy photos, videos and audio recordings exempt from public inspection without the express permission from the applicable next of kin. Lots of documentaries and books about it. In a Blink of an Eye is the book that Michael Waltrip wrote about Earnhardt's accident. Blink of an Eye, 2019 documentary film. 3, the Dale Earnhardt story that talks about Earnhardt's career. And The Day, Dale Earnhardt, The Day, which was a documentary that was on Speed about the day of the accident. I think it's seeing them, because then you know what Earnhardt was like as a driver, because he was so insane. I'm Gareth Thomas, thank you for seeing this. And remember, like, share, subscribe, and I'll give you more great content. Goodbye.